Hi, so again, it's been like 10 months since I put a video up, and it just occurred to me, I don't know, kind of on a whim to make another one. So what's the date today? It's the 18th of August, 2016, which is actually exactly 1 month before my English school celebrates its second anniversary, which is pretty cool. 2 years, it's not bad. It's still going, so that's always a good sign. Um, Gosh, not a whole lot has changed. This week all of the group lessons are off, so I'm just using it to kind of catch up on paperwork and organize teaching supplies and do some laminating and stuff like that. A lot of things tend to pile up when you're a one-man show because you're the only guy doing things and you just kind of run out of steam after a while. So it's important to have kind of downtime with no lessons. That's why I'm wearing a t-shirt today instead of my normal, button-up. Um, I'm also thinking potentially this fall of hiring someone to work on Saturdays, which is not a day I generally teach. I've done a few private lessons and stuff on Saturdays that I'm available, but I actually do different work at another place, a totally different type of business. I don't teach English on Saturdays, so I can't open it up as a regular option for group students. But generally, Saturdays are your busiest days, so it would make sense to have somebody in if I could swing it. So that would mean becoming somebody's boss officially. That's actually never a position I've been in, but it can't be that hard. Just one person, 1 day a week. You never know. So that's something I'm looking forward to, and there's always chances to expand, I guess, if you're doing well enough. It helps to think about the future and what that brings and opportunities, and that's one of how can I say, one of the benefits, I guess, of going solo is once you get over the initial kind of emptiness of not having a regular salary and the stress of filling the schedule and kind of figuring out how everything goes, because you can't really just do it from day one. It does take a little bit of time, and there's a lot of other elements beyond teaching, which I think I've mentioned. Things like managing and sales and dealing with requests and being skillful basically is what it all boils down to. How can you be skillful at whatever it is you're doing? So I think I've been at that long enough now. I've developed a certain very slight level of confidence as to what it takes to keep customers from quitting, basically. So once that's in place, you really start to think about, the options, like in terms of, for example, if you're living abroad, going home more regularly for longer periods of time. I have 3 children. The oldest is going to be 6 next Valentine's Day, and he's the only one of our 3 who's been back to the U.S. But he was like 1.5, and he barely remembers it. Although he does remember some of it. He's a pretty sharp little guy. But I want my kids to start making a stronger connection with their home, and also myself. The U.S. is an amazing place, and I'm happy enough to be here in Japan because it really is the best option for my family for the time being. But you know, being away from the U.S., I realized, like, how much opportunity there is there, and despite, the conservative movement and just how stagnant a lot of the politics are, it's a pretty forward-thinking country compared to Japan for sure. And there's just so much more happening there. So I want to kind of expand my horizons and get involved with more things, maybe over the internet and hopefully in person. There's so much out there. So I'm definitely happy that I'm in that situation. Although I don't really have a clear direction from here. It's like you get up to speed on what you're doing, and you imagine this exact trajectory continuing for another 10 or 20 years, not much is going to happen. Just continue to pay bills and, while away the days. So I'm really, I guess, feeling the need to start working on the next step, whatever that may be. And I think that's a good thing to do, and it's something I've learned very, very gradually. Growing up, just kind of going through the mill of Western education and dealing with the demands of daily life, I never thought much about the next step. Like, what can you really do as a person? And I think if you take the initiative, if you're a decent person with the skills to use a computer and communicate effectively and read and write, I mean, there's really so much you can do in this day and age. And so it's a pretty good place to be. But, it's always boils back down to the details. It's like, what do you do today, now, in the next 5 minutes that's going to help your growth? And it's a difficult question to answer, because when you look at your life and you think about all of the elements, and they seem very coincidental at the time they're happening, but then you can look back and see how influential they were. I met this person at this place, and we had this conversation, and he mentioned this thing, and I went there and met this person, and it's amazing how things work out. And some people have this kind of blind trust, like, yeah, just, I can figure it out. I mean, and that does happen, and I'd say that's probably easier in your own country with your own culture and your own network. But when you remove yourself from that, your options, they're still there, but they suddenly become much more stark. It's like you don't have as many of them in the first place, and then because it's, in my case, a different country, there's also the language barrier, and things are going to take much more effort and planning and energy. So, but that's true anywhere you go, there's obstacles. But it's an interesting thought to just kind of train your mind and then kind of take inventory of what's going on in your social life, in your own personal development, your own skill set, and asking yourself, what can you do with that? Where can you go? And personally, I don't know, but I think starting in English school was a very, very good first step to take, because once you get over the initial stress, for lack of a better word, involved with starting a business, you gradually start to focus more on the openness and potential, because that's, I think, actually what's fueling your movement, whether you realize it or not. You may be thinking like, okay, English school, students, numbers up, keep the sales up. But actually, the motivation is coming entirely from you to succeed and to build something. And if you gain a small amount of success in that, you can transfer it to other places in your life. And I guess it's the old principle of like attracts like. So if you're open to growth and experience, perhaps on some level you're attracting that to yourself. You're making yourself receptive to what's out there, and that can accumulate. That's what I'm hoping. So we'll see how things go from here. And that's my update. So probably put another one out here in the next year or so. And anyone out there, as always, feel free to ask questions, comment. I'm still kind of a fledgling YouTuber, but you never know what the future will bring. So there it is.